right, you ready to rock and roll?
Yes.
Yeah.
Boom.
And we're back and live, kind of, not really, recording.
Yeah, recording. When you're watching this, we won't be live. We'll be in bed or something. But we got
back,
another
baby.
guest for you guys.
Yes.
Damn, this is 2 weeks in a row.
Look at us. You don't need to listen to us the whole time, ramble about aliens and AI. So
I dig talking about the aliens.
I do too.
And the AI. But
That's our world now.
yeah. And there you here's the man of the hour. So we have Mr. Chad McLean. Chad.
What's up, gentlemen?
Welcome to the podcast, dude. I've been excited. We've actually brought you up on several podcasts because somehow the topic has always turned with our other guests to mental health and like, I'm going to slaughter this, but psilocybin mushrooms.
Psilocybin mushrooms or like PTSD or using hallucinogens or that sort of for medication, because we talk a lot about, soldiers in the military, how they're dealing with PTSD and coming on, and how the military likes to shove antidepressants down our throats, and how that's kind of like a Band-Aid for what actually the root of the problem is. So,
So it's been important to have you on, and a little bit of backstory for the people that are watching us. Like me and Chad, we went to high school together, and that's crazy.
We did.
Looking back on it.
We did.
We were Montana, senior high.
Senior high, we were the sophomores that sat at the very end of the bench. We were the 9 and 10 guys to get the crap time, dude.
Oh yeah, dude. Wait, you got time?
Yeah. Every once in a while, I think I got 10 seconds, dude, towards the end of a game.
Yep. If we were winning,
that's it.
But yeah, and then Chad went. So you went straight out of high school into the military.
Yeah,
right?
I don't even think the cap and gown were down yet. And I was off to basic, and I went into basic just as an 11 bang bang. I was just a grunt.
Yeah.
So went in, did the basic training thing, and then halfway through basic, got an airborne slot. So grabbed that airborne slot, went to airborne school, and then from there, the Ranger liaison came down to airborne school, and then the old military career starts. And I was in the 75th Ranger Regiment for almost a full year before I fucking hit my huge decline and stuff. So
yeah, your huge decline.
Yeah, for me, I mean, so we did a night jump into Spokane, Fairchild Air Force Base.
Oh, just training mission?
It's just a training mission, and the Air Force pilots took the wrong route over, and we had dudes jumping out and hitting hangars and hitting planes, and it actually affected our readiness status. And I was a AG, so I was in the Gustav section, so I was weapons platoon. So we're jumping with our Gustavs and rounds and all that heavy equipment, and I ended up burning in. And I don't remember if it was 100 feet or 10 feet. I don't even remember. But at that point, is essentially kind of where my military and life kind of went south. At that point, as you know, right, you don't say anything. You take your motor and you drive on and you shut up, right? You just keep going about it. Yeah. And for me, I ended up getting addicted to pain pills pretty quick, just because you got to operate, right? You got to go do your thing. And before you know it, now I'm popping pain pills, and then I'm starting to drink. And, we weren't in wartime. I was in 96 to 2000, so it wasn't no real big wars going on. And so you're in Ranger Battalion, you're training like a maniac because that's all you have to do, right? And a bunch of alpha males, wanting to go show their best. We trained hard. And so from there, I mean, I'm fighting in barracks. I'm doing all kinds of just damage, dude, just self-inflicted damage. And so that's where it all kind of stemmed from, dude, was that jump that I burnt in. And so ketamine kind of helped me relive some of that shit.
Yeah. And that's why I've been excited to have you guys on. So Chad runs a nonprofit, right? So we can talk a little bit about that. You've got Mental Joe. And so tell them, what's the mission behind Mental Joe Apparel? And
100%, man. It's, for me, it same thing. Ketamine kind of woke me up to a lot of different things. And I always say it's that 6th or 8th, and I know we'll get a little bit deeper on the ketamine and just other things as well. So I know it's kind of high level stuff, but just kind of had this aha moment of like, we need to stop like catering to big pharma and just the whole corporate greed bullshit, right? And through it, just like, let's use apparel to talk about mental health on the daily. Yeah. And then not only are we going to talk about mental health on the daily, but we're going to talk about some out of the box, non-traditional stuff. We even talk about doing holotropic breath work and, even going to equine therapy stuff. But I mean, my catalyst to get me out of my yuck, man, it was ketamine, hands down, psychedelics. I've done one psilocybin ceremony, if you want to put that name on it. And I've done one MDMA, which is essentially a very pure form of ecstasy, right? And they've catapulted me completely forward into a better human being, better father, better husband, better understanding of just people in general. And so the whole goal behind Mental Joe is to use apparel to kind of talk about these big stigma items, if you will, that no one wants to talk about. We all are dealing with them. We all know that everyone's dealing with their own shit and negative thought processes and everything. And we're all human and we're still going to stumble. But like, man, the psychedelic, they've literally catapulted me forward, dude. I mean, I'm almost down 60 pounds. I'm off of almost all SSR. I am off of all SSRIs. I haven't had pain pills in probably 10 years.
What's
you know?
SSRIs?
So SSRIs is a serotonin uptake re-inhibitor. So it's, antidepressant, Effexor, Wellbutrin, all that kind of stuff, the whole group of antidepressants and anxiety medications. And I was on that stuff for a good chunk of my adult life, essentially from when I was out of the military till up until about 8 months ago. I was on some kind of pharmaceutical med. Again, as you said in the beginning there, you go to the VA and it's, here's your bag of pills for the next 2 months, and we'll see you later. Meanwhile, I'm getting to the point where I'm getting a little bit more brash because our bandwidth is growing and more people are understanding our mission. But the VA, man, there's good people at the VA. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, the VA is broken, and we all know it. And I think you're starting to see more and more veterans speak out. More and more veterans are looking for the non-traditional paths, like psychedelics. That's why you see so many foundations now that have these things set up around essentially the world, Peru, Costa Rica, Mexico, to send these veterans and first responders to these outlets to go get help. And there's not many people that come back from those saying, like, I'm not a better person, or I see things differently. Like, almost every person that's been through one of those ceremonies or psychedelic experiences has said it's one of their top 5 things that they've done in their life. One of the most meaningful things that has happened to them. So it's profound, man. It's crazy. And we got to remove the stigma of some of this stuff and think outside the box, because our current way of dealing with mental health and our veterans and our first responders, it's obviously failing when you have 44 veterans a day killing themselves, bro.
Wait, did you just say 44?
44. There's a new one, 44.
See, I thought when it was 22, I was like, man, but we saw it firsthand. I remember and that kind of spawned our mission with giving back to Mission 22 and these organizations that help with veteran suicide awareness and prevention. Because after my first deployment to Afghanistan, we came back and we had 4 guys. I remember we came back, we had our 30-day block leave, and our unit was hardcore. Like, they're like, hey, we're going back out to the field. Like, we just got back from deployment, had our 30-day block leave, and like, we're going out to the field. I remember we were out in the field training, doing FTXs, and our battalion commander came out and safety stand down, fucking bring all your gear back in. We're RTB. So we went back to base and like, what the fuck's going on? And I guess that they had over that weekend, because we were out over the weekend training, they had 4 soldiers commit suicide within our brigade. And it was like, what the fuck? And so, like, we had to do safety stand down. We had to go through resiliency training and had to go to all these meetings and stuff like that. It's like, Jesus Christ, 4 soldiers within a weekend. And so anyways, that was eye-opening to me. But I do want to clarify, because I know, like, we're talking, this is non-traditional treatment, right? Yeah. And so people are hearing, what the fuck? They're talking about psychedelics. Like, we're not talking about just going and tripping on mushrooms, people. So don't go to your local drug dealer. Right. Yeah. So this is more structured, right? There's a lot that goes into it.
There's a lot that goes into it. And I mean, the research is out there. I mean, if you just Google like psychedelic research or psychedelic, news articles, you will see a plethora of stuff that comes up that talks about how these are saving lives, how people that are heroin or alcohol addictions, right, essentially just nipping them in the bud with certain medication. Ibogaine's a big one for guys that have addiction, right? Psilocybin is huge, along with ketamine, for depression and anxiety. And what the more studies are doing on these things, they're finding out that certain medicines, certain drugs, whatever labels people want to put on these things, right, are really fighting certain addictions and mental health issues. And you'll hear it in this space a lot. You'll hear setting, and integration, right? Integration is kind of the work after, whether it's journaling, whether it's talk therapy, whether it's adding the gym back into your life like I did, whether it's meditation, whether it's right, you start making better decisions and adding better things into your life, as opposed to, I'm gonna go golf on a Saturday morning and get schmammered all day and then just feel like shit for the entire weekend, right? Like, you just see things through a different lens. And that's the thing, is we're not advocating for this stuff to be at your local 7-Eleven, right? Like, we want it controlled. We want it done correctly. Like, you hear anybody in this space and it's like, and that's why I'm coming at it with like such an average Joe, right? Mental Joe approach, right? Because there's a lot of average Joes out there that have these issues, but they don't know any different, right? Through their upbringing, through society, through everything. Like, they have no idea that psychedelics or even ketamine, at that matter, could possibly change their brain waves and thought patterns and turn their life around, really.
Now, when was the first time that you had your first ketamine therapy?
Yeah, so for me it was, we'll just get nitty gritty with it. So literally 2 weeks ago, 3 years ago, was when I took my life, or almost took my life. And from there I went into the cuckoo band, man. I was there for 2 weeks. When I was in there, I just told the wife, I was like, something's wrong. Like, something is not right in my head. Like, there's no way my thought process is even close to normal. Like, I don't know what's going on. I always knew I was a little off in the brain. And I don't know if that's through all the concussion type stuff. I don't know if it was from me burning in, all the TBI stuff that you hear, all the concussion stuff that happens to all of us guys, right? Never had a brain scan, but I just knew something was wrong. So I went through, and my wife just started doing a bunch of research, and she found ketamine. And so from there, like, I read a couple different articles. I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast about it. And so roughly almost this probably exact time, 3 years ago, is when I entered my first ketamine session.
For those that don't know, what is ketamine?
So ketamine, believe it or not, and I might be off a little bit on this, but it was used in like World War II as a disassociate, so they could like perform surgeries and things of that nature. It's administered by an anesthesiologist, and it's essentially it has the molecule structure of a hallucinogen, like a true psychedelic, but I think it's kind of an off beaten path. But essentially, it's a medicine derived in a lab. Back in the day, people would take it, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and the street drug was called Special K. Right, people would take it and they'd go to raves and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was, yeah. And when I was in Second Ranger Battalion, which is out in Fort Lewis, right, Washington, and Seattle was north. That was the first time I ever heard of Special K, because at that time it was the grunge scene, and you had everybody in Seattle in these rave scenes. And I heard Special K. I had no idea what the hell it was. I was a kid that drank beer, Mm-hmm. So,
you were
but yeah,
it's guy, huh?
Yeah, Keystone, not Bud Light, but
yeah,
no, yeah.
I can see that Keystone Busch Light there. Yeah,
it's that Montana thing, man. What's that cheap beer we can get our hands on?
That's right.
But yeah, so the ketamine, it's like I didn't understand it, man, and I didn't want to understand it, honestly. Like, I just wanted to kind of go in completely just, wide open. Like, what's this going to bring up? What's it going to do? Like, because I didn't want to have any preconceived notions. Right. I didn't want to read all these articles and people, if you don't have this, it's a bad trip. Or if you don't have this, it doesn't mean anything. And each one was different. And at the time I didn't have any integration specialist. I didn't have anybody to walk me through this stuff. So I really went head first as a guinea pig. I went to 4 different clinics here in Phoenix. There's not one clinic here in Phoenix I would recommend to any veterans. And ketamine clinic's got a problem with that. You got my number. Give me a call. Maybe we'll adjust your protocols. But it's shit, man. It's straight up shit. Yeah.
So talk about integration. You talk about integration. So that's kind of like the structured process, right?
Yeah. Some people have some workbooks, but most integration or ketamine, or even like if you were to go to Mexico and go through like a retreat down there, they have their integration. So kind of like a Zoom call you would have with your therapist or your space holder. And there are things that come up, and so then you learn that you're starting to connect these certain dots. One for me was like, I grew up, my mom, worked at senior high for, 20 plus years. Everyone loved and adored her. But what they didn't know is my dad was an abusive alcoholic. And, I was the kid that took the brunt of a lot of that stuff. And so you get those childhood traumas that jump in. And what I tied that back to is the reason just recently is I never kind of grew up in a safe space. Again, not blaming my parents, but always kind of grew up with the I feel like I got to fight out of the corner mentality. So that creates a lot of anger and animosity and resentment, and then you kind of carry that on through. Um, so yeah, man, it's life changing, the things that I've put together. And you talk about these with a therapist, right? The fighting out of the corner, the not growing up in a safe space, and then you realize how you react to certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, no wonder I jumped the gun on that. This is my thought process. So it just really kind of makes you kind of own your shit, man. It really helps you kind of dig into that ego and get rid of things that we're holding on to, that there's no reason to hold on to it. At the end of the day, I say, there's no pause button on this, there's no rewind. Like, this is it, man. We have one trip on this freaking planet, that's it, done deal. So why not push the limits? Why not like dive in to see what you can do and how to meet your max potential? And that's, for me, that's what psychedelics has done. It's got me out of my own way.
Yeah. So you talked about, so you said that the clinics down there are shit. So what path did you go? How did you do it?
Yeah. So the first clinic I went to was just the first one that we, essentially found on the internet. Went into the clinic. We didn't know anything differently. I mean, the office was nice. All the staff was great, but essentially, like, there was times like they would just put me in a reclining chair and, kind of plug me into the matrix, if you will. They just kind of IV dripped me the ketamine and shut the door and left me. and I've got an eye mask on.
Just to deal with your own thoughts and
deal with your own shit,
demons
man.
Could arise and
exactly. And so I would have an eye mask on, and I had certain music, and I learned that way too, that music's super important. Like, there was some really nice, like, upbeat type music, and I felt like everything was steady and I could kind of adjust to things that were coming at me. And then, holy shit, I had one time where the music essentially got real ominous, and man, my trip got dark quick.
Yeah. So me and Nick talked about that because we wanted to talk about the structure of this, because obviously, like we said, it's not just going and tripping balls, right?
Yeah.
Because I thought back to, I mean, obviously I've done psychedelics, not structured.
Yeah.
And dude, I remember I tried mushrooms twice. And they both went dark. Like, it was a fun time at first, and seeing the Scooby-Doo mystery van rolling by and shit, and laughing your ass off at everything. And then we went back to the house, and the walls started breathing, and I'm looking at my friends, and their faces were like melting, and I was like, you gotta get the fuck out of here. And I kicked them out of my house, and that made it even worse, because then I jumped in my bed and threw the covers over my head, just trying to like pass out. And it's like, it went, yeah, I couldn't shut the thoughts off in my mind. I thought I was dying. And I was like, you know what? I'm never doing mushrooms again. That was horrible.
Yeah. And that's just it. If you have no one to walk you through that, or you don't know what's coming around the corner, like, you're left to deal with that on your own. And so that's what happened probably my first 10 ketamine sessions. Like, I just journaled stuff. Like, I was figuring certain things out on my own. I was reading articles about the third, probably one in, to understand what set and setting and setting an intention up front and things of that nature was. So I was becoming a novice expert, if you will, on my own pretty quick, because I just threw myself into the fire. So I went through that ketamine clinic, and long story short, I think they ended up getting closed down for insurance fraud, because they were trying to hammer us, trying to tell us that insurance was covered. And next thing you know, I get a bill in the mail for like $8,000. And I'm like, what? Where'd this come from?
How much?
I'm like, you're supposed like $8,000.
Oof.
Yeah. So it's like, I called them and straight up, I was like, you're supposed to fucking help me with my mental health, not add to it. Like, where am I getting $8,000? Like, you said, my insurance approved this shit. So, I mean, we went back and forth with them for a while. They went out of business. And then we found another ketamine clinic, and sadly did 2 stints of their ketamine. And before my feet were even on the ground, or I was done disassociating, dude, like, these guys are trying to sell me an integration package as I'm disassociated. My wife is sitting there, and she's like, hey, you guys need to back the fuck off. Like, his feet aren't on earth yet, and you're trying to sell him some integration package. It was wild, bro.
So it's like they wanted to get you to that state where you can't really, and then get you to sign on the dotted line.
Yeah. And so I try to give them grace, because I knew they were a new ketamine clinic, and I know they were trying a lot of stuff. So I'm trying to give them grace, but at the same time, it's like, you've got to know what you're doing, dude. Like, you put me under, I'm going through this stuff, and I come out on the other side, and here you are trying to, like, buy this package for 19.95. It'll save your life. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? And so it went through 2 other ketamine clinics, and then this is like, people can look it up, and I've got the paperwork for it. But my last ketamine clinic, I guess you'd say infusion, was 225 milligrams of ketamine.
Is that
And
a
that
lot?
is a shit ton. Um, and I didn't have much. I literally walked out of the clinic with my wife, and I told her, I said, I don't think I need to do ketamine anymore. I'm like, I didn't get anything from that. It was completely blank the whole time. I felt like I was pretty aware, but I was still kind of out of it. But at that time, that was probably 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. That was my last ketamine session that I've done.
Mm.
And then since then, I've done one psilocybin and I've done one MDMA ceremony, and that's it. My whole goal is to use this stuff as little as possible,
Right.
right? Like,
You don't want
try
it to
to
become like a
try to
crutch
find the
later on.
true foundation of who I am, right? Like, and where can I push my limits? Like, there's a lot of people in this space, sadly, like, they're going on ayahuasca retreats like every fucking 2 months. And in my mind, I'm like, what haven't you addressed with the 10 previous ones that you've done? Like, what else are you digging for? Like, what else are you looking for? And there'll be people that, they do it for whatever reasons. But man, if, like I said, if you're going to try to get this to the masses and help more people, like, we got to approach this with a little bit of, common sense. And, not everyone's into, blue hair people dancing at Burning Man. Not saying that's a bad thing. Do your thing, like, rock on. I'm not, but these things can save, and it's already been proven to save a lot of lives. And so that's why we're coming at it from a very mental Joe, average Joe, you know, angle, because, at the end of the day, I'm not a soft guy. I'm not a tier 1 guy. I'm an average Joe, man. Just trying to make the best life I can. I'm just trying to get through things and be the best dad or human I can. So I think we resonate with a lot of just dudes out there that are using other substances to just kind of numb out. Maybe they don't know anything about psychedelics, and maybe I'm that guy that they hear on a podcast like this. It goes, oh shit, I've had some issues. Maybe I will dive in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool that you're taking that approach of the therapeutic approach where you're trying to figure out what your demons actually are instead of like this recreational drug approach where it's like, I just want to go down to South America with a shaman to see the mechanical elves when I trip DMT. Like,
Yeah. And same thing, right? Like, hey, each to their own. If that's your
Yeah.
jam, man, I'm not going to poo-poo you for it, but like I said, if you're trying to bring it, to the
Make it more
masses, and
mainstream. Yep.
yeah, exactly. And you want people to like truly understand this ecosystem, then like, maybe notching back the crazy is not such a bad thing. Like, but again, like, love all you people, get it, love what you're doing, do you, not poo-pooing on anybody. But man, like, this stuff could help so many more people if we're more outspoken about it and approach it in a different manner.
So what was different between the the ketamine and the psilocybin mushroom?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So when I did the psilocybin, the magic mushrooms, I was still on 37.5 milligrams of effexor. And a lot of folks, even the shamans and stuff out there, and medicine people, again, whatever label we're wanting to put on these, right, won't take a lot of the veterans and first responders if you're on a lot of medication, just because of the interaction of all the different molecules and the compounds and how they kind of
Interact
collide
with one
heads.
another.
Like psilocybin and SSRIs really kind of go
Yeah.
at it. So to get the full effect of like mushrooms, they want you to kind of be at ground zero.
Mm-hmm.
But so I was on 37.5 milligrams of effexor still, and to kind of, I guess, jump the fence of the effexor so that the mushrooms could take its full effect, is I ended up taking almost eight grams of mushrooms, which is
8 grams.
8 grams. Yeah. And it was pretty easy for me. That my space holder, I call them space holders. My space holder was like, bro, like, you're a pro. He's like, you navigated that so well. And the entire time it was really chill. We had some music going on, but in my mind, I still remember like trying to pull up my mom or trying to pull up my dad or my brother or my sister or my wife or my boys to see like, okay, where am I failing? Like, who do I need to apologize for? Like,
Yeah.
and nothing would come in. Nothing was coming in that time. It was like if I was laying in a backyard and just staring up at the stars, and all you saw was just huge black screen with some stars on it. That's literally all I saw for about 5 hours. The one thing that was super noticeable was a white pill bottle that literally like came into like the screen dumped out, and then floated away. And this thing would like just pop out into the vision movie screen that I thought I was looking at. Like felt like every 40 minutes or something, I'd see just white pill bottles come in, dump, and go back out. And so with the integration, right, my space holder that I had, he was able to interpret that for me and say, hey, dude, essentially what medicine is telling you is you're done with the pharmaceutical stuff. Like you don't need it anymore.
Get rid of
And
it.
that next morning, I literally flushed everything I had down the toilet, and I haven't been on anything since. My alcohol consumption is stupid down, like socially or whatever. I might have a good glass of whiskey or something, but other than that, like my taste buds are different. I don't even enjoy.
Keystones.
What's that?
A couple Keystones.
Keystone. Yeah, I don't even crave the Keystone anymore. So I mean, it's wild, man. It literally is, because it's like people that have any kind of questions, this stuff, I say, man, if anything, just look at me. Look at proof in the pudding.
Yeah.
I'm down a ton of weight. I'm clearer than I've ever been. I feel like I actually have a purpose.
Even from the time we reconnected, and when you first like reached out, and I didn't even know I was talking to you, right? Like, and then when you reached out, and you're like, oh shit, this is Chad. Like we went to school together. But yeah, dude, you look a lot better. Like you look trim. You look good. So that's awesome, dude.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just knowing that, each day, like, you hate saying it, but 1% better each day, right?
Yeah.
Like each day, I feel like I'm improving, but I also have days where I take 5 steps back. And so now, like, I'm a little bit easier. I give myself grace now. Like, all right, dude, hey, you got a lot of shit going on. Like, you missed the gym yesterday. It's not the end of the world, but you ended up, walking 20,000 steps because you're at a conference. Like, trying to be able to, like, hey, it's okay, dude. You're going to miss some things once in a while. Like, don't beat yourself up over it. Yeah. To where if I would have done that before, you're a piece of shit. I quit my entire gym routine. I get back to eating like crap. And then bam, I'm right back down in the black hole.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you kind of touched on it previously about breath work and meditation a little bit. I know for myself and a lot of other people, especially active duty military, if you're still in the military, if you're a government employee, if you're a police officer, there's a lot of people that cannot do these substances or they'll lose their job. Like especially in the military, I worked as an investigator. I investigated crimes that people did these drugs recreationally. And unfortunately, the UCMJ makes it pretty clear that, hey, if you do a Schedule 1, 2, or 3 drug, you're done.
You're out.
So what advice do you have for those people that may be struggling but cannot go this route? Like cannot do these substances?
I would go the ketamine route, man. Ketamine's legal. I would go ketamine. Yeah, ketamine is legal. Yeah, it's because it's an anesthesia, essentially. Again, like I'm a novice at this stuff, so I'm barely scratching the surface, but ketamine's legal. There was someone tried to explain me the loophole on it, but long story short, like there's like 6 or 7 ketamine clinics here. I bet you guys have 2 or 3 in Boise. Yeah. Easy. Mm-hmm. So that would be my thing, is like try to find a ketamine clinic. And then when you're doing the ketamine clinic, like, do some research, do some investigative stuff on it, like find out what their setting is, find out what their integration program looks like, the cost for ketamine. Essentially, ketamine is a pretty cheap drug. It's all the stuff that you have to do, all the red tape that you have to tie into it, and all the paperwork, and the doctor that's got to be there to prescribe it, and the nurse that has to be there to, administer it. So there's different guidelines there, but for those active duty, first responders or veterans, like hands down, man, I would look at ketamine as a way to get you over that hump. What's that?
Would TRICARE cover it, you think?
I don't think so. I know there's something that there's called Spravato. I think it's the right name, but it's a nasal one. I've heard a couple of people using it, but I haven't heard huge success rates with it. Intravenous, right, is the way to go. It's like the gold standard because it just gets it in there and gets you going. But I also do know, like, because I've got a ton of them, like buddies that are active first responders now that essentially has said fuck it, and they went to a ceremony, or they went through some of this stuff because they're like, I'm tired of living like this, man. Like, I don't care if I get fired from a job or not. Like, if I don't do something, I'm taking my life. So I think it comes down to a point where people are like, you know what? My mental health is way more important than this goddamn job is. And so what's cool is, believe it or not, here at the Phoenix VA is I want to say it's psilocybin, it might be, but it also might be ketamine. I'm not 100% clear, but the VA here in Phoenix is going through a trial with veterans with psychedelics right
Great.
now. So
Yeah, it's
there are, yeah, go ahead.
no. I was gonna say it's good to see. So yes, the psilocybin, in fact, MDMA, when they were trying to get, because you already touched on it, but MDMA, when they were trying to get the FDA approval for microdosing, one of my buddies actually got selected to be part of that trial, right? And he had to go down to Colorado and be a part of it, and they did the microdosing and stuff, and he's been a changed man ever since, but and he swears by it. So it's great to see that they're starting to finally grasp this and starting to incorporate it.
Yeah.
Like at the VA, that's fucking amazing.
Yeah, because I don't think you can poo-poo it anymore, right? You have enough veterans out there, and you have enough tier 1 veterans, right? Like the tip of the spear guys come out saying, hey, fuck you guys. Like, if you're not going to, Mr. VA or Mr. Government, if you're not going to help us, we're going to go create these foundations to go get the help that these first responders and veterans need. So I think when you see leaders in the tier 1 section standing up and kind of hollering to the mountaintops of like, this shit needs to happen, it needs to be legalized, and it needs to be done effectively. Like, I always look at it as like, if we can send billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine, there's no way in hell that most of these drugs should be dismissed from Schedule 1 so we can study them effectively. It blows my frickin' mind, dude.
Yeah.
Agreed. Are you pretty read up on the John Hopkins study, the 20-year psilocybin study?
So not extensively, but I have dove into that. Same thing, right? John Hopkins has been doing that. MAPS, for those folks that are out there, it's multiple disciplinary association of psychedelic studies. Rick Doblin is the founder of that. And so they're actually having a conference up in Denver in about 30 days that we're going to be part of. We'll have a big booth and stuff up there. But the John Hopkins MAPS, they all have a ton of studies. A lot of these foundations, from what I'm understanding, are also, as those veterans come into those communities to go through a ceremony in Peru or whatnot, they're doing like baseline brain scans and everything, and then brain scans afterwards. From what I'm understanding, as it's like, hey, like, we're having these people go through this stuff, we might as well use them as some kind of study so you have some data. So a lot of this stuff has been done independently outside of Hopkins and Stanford even. I mean, you guys follow Huberman. You hear Huberman lately, like he's talking about psilocybin like once a week now and how much it's changing mental health.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's the one thing that really opened my eyes was when I dove kind of into, and again, I'm not very read up on the John Hopkins study, but just the statistics coming out of John Hopkins from psilocybin showing the addiction rate, like everything was like above 50% with these trials, that like people that were addicted to alcohol, 50% of the people that went in and did the psilocybin trial were got off of alcohol within like a very short amount of time after they got done. Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's like ridiculous. And you don't see that anywhere with any prescription drugs that you get. Like, yeah, that was very eye opening.
Yeah. I mean, same thing. Like, I say I used to pound alcohol like it was water, and now I'll go outside and it's hot, right? I'm in the desert here. I got a pool. I want to jump in and have a cold beverage. Like, I'll take a swig of that Keystone Light, as John says, and I have like a swig and I hand it to my wife. I'm like, I don't like the taste of it. Like, it's wild, man. It's hard to explain, but even there's your tier 1 guys, like, the Sean Ryan guy, right? Former Navy SEAL CIA guy. He's got 2 good podcasts on there. One, he talks about his psychedelic experience and his integration. I think he's been sober now for like a year and a half. Like, he's like, I just don't want to drink. I don't need it, man. So it's like, if that's not enough proof in the pudding for people, like, I don't know what else to tell you, like, wake up is what I got to say.
Yeah. What's cool, and you post about it a lot on Mental Joe Apparel, you repost it, but all of the states that are starting to, like Oregon, I just saw has their first clinic opening up for a therapeutic psilocybin. I know Arizona has been big with the push of that as well. So states are starting to step up where the federal government kind of has stood still on the issue.
Yeah, and in fact, there was a bill that just passed, and I don't know all the intricacies of it, but it was a bill here in Arizona where it's a $5 million study, and then I think the state is matching it at 5, so it's a $10 million to at least get them through phase 1, and it's essentially of the actual mushroom itself, like not the molecule. So like, if you came into this study, you would eat 1 or 2 grams of raw mushrooms, right? And then they would see the baseline of your brain, and they would go through that study to where most the psilocybin that's going on, it's down to the actual molecule. You know, they grind it up, they put it in a pill capsule, it's in add some additives and stuff. I think, again, not a laboratory guy, but this is the first study that we know of that is full on just the mushroom working as its whole fungi little dude. So people are coming around on it, and that's why I try to use our stories on Instagram to just share stuff out.
Educate.
Right, because there's
Right.
there's enough good content out there. I don't need to recreate it, and there's more, they're nice quick blurps so people can look at it and go, oh shit, man, like you said, there's 4 or 5 states in the last week Mental Joe posted that are making these things legal for therapeutic uses. So it's just, I think the more people you get behind this, the more people that understand it and step out of their wheelhouse and just remove the labels of this stuff. Like, man, we could literally clean up mental health, I think, in the next 5 years if we just stepped out of our own ways.
Oh yeah, destigmatize this bitch, like,
Yeah.
Big time.
yeah.
Yeah, you sent me a couple, and it's interesting because like it's not just for vets who suffer from PTSD or who have TBI.
Correct.
You sent me one. I think it was Netflix that I watched. It was a series, and like it was crazy. It was interesting to watch, like a dude that suffered from severe OCD, and he went through and he did his psilocybin trips, and he talked about like what he was seeing, and they showed him with his people in the room with him, guiding him, and like he came out of it, and he only had to do 2 sessions, and like he no longer has that OCD like craziness that was basically destroying his marriage, and he was completely fixed.
Yeah, I mean, I was the same way. I was diagnosed with OCPD, which is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So I was, everything had to be dress. If you didn't do it a certain way, I got fucking pissed off. And I'm sure my wife was like, Jesus Christ, dude, like we're just folding socks here. I'm like, you gotta match socks. Now I'm like, whatever, dude. Yeah. So, I mean, kind of like the OCD, and I can give kind of examples of like just, different things that I wouldn't have done before. And so like, like 3 years ago, I remember losing my shit on my oldest boy, like maybe 4 years ago, we're trying to do a haircut, and he just wouldn't get out of the truck. And, the normal parenting thing, I just kind of grabbed him by the arms and like, get out of the truck now, and lost my shit, and that probably would have been my parenting style if it wasn't for the psychedelics and me opening up my brain, right? Because that's kind of how I was parented, like pull up your bootstraps and just get shit done, stop being a baby. But now, like, man, it's different. Like I screw up, I immediately, and like I'm sitting down and taking a knee, and I'm looking that kid in the eye and like, hey, dude, like dad wasn't in a real good mindset, dude, and that's my bad. Like, and the feedback that we're getting from teachers and even the bus driver that we had today, about how well Connor is, and how well behaved he is, and the emotional intelligence that he has to make certain decisions, like, man, that's all I needed to hear. That just tells me, okay, proof in the pudding, like what me and my wife are doing is working. And we might not be perfect parents, but to get that feedback almost constantly from teachers and people that see our kid on the regular, that he's out there operating in the world in a very kind and concise manner at the age of 6, like, shit, man, hey, we're rolling, dude. So it's little things like that I've noticed that if I wouldn't have done this stuff, there's no way I'd be in the right mindset to be a healthy dad for my boys. There's no way.
Yeah. How has this helped with? Yeah, it sounds like overall health is also like that you're more healthy, like working out wise or like eating right or whatever. How is that the ketamine therapy and doing psilocybin? How has that helped that part of your life?
I think huge, right? Because now I look at food a little different. I always joke, I was a sugar monster, man. If I go to a birthday party and there's 10 cupcakes, 9 of them were mine. Like, get out of the way. I'm taking this shit down, So I look at food differently, if I'm starving, but I don't have any good options, like, the normal thought process is I'm just drive through McDonald's and just chow on that. And even if I chow on it every single night of the week, it's okay. But now I make conscious decisions now of what I'm kind of eating. Don't get me wrong, I still have my cupcake. I still have a good old McDonald's cheeseburger every now and then, but it's not every day of the week. It's once a quarter or something like that. You know what I mean? So I think just understand, like, you can still, have some crap food or, do drinks or go out and do, you can still live life, but man, do it in moderation. And now like I said, it's just, things are different. I'm in the gym constantly. And so now I'm back running. So now I'm pushing myself in running. So one of my goals is to actually do like a sprint, Ironman, and then eventually work up to a full Ironman. I mean, I would love to do some stuff like that. And I don't think if it wasn't for these sessions that I've gone through that I would have that mindset. So I really feel like I'm getting back to that kind of solid mindset of there's another gear in me to go, and how much further can I push the boundaries of who I am and my physical ability. Like I said, there's no pause button, there's no rewind, man. So I need to get after it. I've wasted 20 years living numb. I need to live the next 40, above ground. So
there you go.
Has this affected like your spirituality at all? I know a lot of people come through these trips. Like you keep reiterating, like, we have one life to live. We have one life to live. And I've talked to people that have done, psilocybin mushrooms or ketamine or whatever. And they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. Like they found themselves spiritually, or we're all kind of like one person basically. Mm-hmm. So has that happened to you? Like, do you think of spirituality different at all?
100%. I mean, I grew up Catholic. My mom taught CCD classes, but at a young age, I was kind of poo-pooed on the whole religion thing. I didn't really buy into it a whole lot. And I still don't, right? But I do know that maybe it's a higher power. Maybe there's a higher source. Maybe it's just energy. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't put my finger on it, but maybe like I sure the hell. What's that?
Maybe it's an alien spaceship.
Or it's alien spaceships. We got a Mental Joe alien shirt that I'll send you guys. But it's I'm open to all the possibilities, right? Like I can't put my finger on it. I didn't have any of those wild experiences where I saw the other side of God and I am God and I saw light. But again, I know there's energy out there. I know there's source. I know there's something else. I know we're not the only idiots in this massive universe flying around, right? Like there's way more shit going on than people want to admit,
Yeah.
Aliens included.
Yes, aliens included.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Mothership out there. Yeah. It's coming to get us.
Yeah, let's not go down the UAP rabbit hole. It's not UFOs anymore; it's UAPs.
That's right.
UAP.
Yeah.
I've told my wife. I'm like stood in the backyard. I'm like, let's go, man. If you guys are here, let's go. Come on down. Let's rock and roll. Let's figure this out.
Right. Let's do some psilocybin mushrooms.
Yeah, let's shake it up a little bit. This society needs a little stir up now.
So you said you did MDMA as well? You did the microdosing?
Yeah. Well, no, MDMA is again, so there's going to be someone in the comments that'll say something, but it's ecstasy.
Yeah.
So MDMA is that. So we did a full like, again, ceremony, right? I don't know what verbiages people like to use, but the most of it is ceremony, right? So we sat with that. And back in the 70s, it was actually used for couples counseling, believe it or not. That's where MDMA kind of came into the scene. It was because same thing. I don't understand it all, but my space holder, as he was explaining to me, is it literally lowers the barriers of just egos and thought processes so you can have hard conversations. And it was super easy to navigate. I sat there, I kind of looked upon my wife and I knew it was kind of her time to kind of deal with some stuff. And for me, I just kind of left the room. I went outside and chilled and let her kind of go through her journey and her experience to face some stuff. And it's literally brought us closer together as a couple. And it is probably something we will do on a yearly basis as kind of a control alt delete to kind of just stay connected. And because again, we all live in this reality, right? We're all still humans. So, we're still going to have the ability where we just go and we don't connect. So this is going to be a way I think that we can get back to our spirituality, right? And connect as two humans that love each other and get rid of the crap. So it's the MDMA was huge. It was for my wife. I think it helped her kind of break through her ceiling, right? Because there was a lot of things she started noticing, and then just certain ways that she might react to me that would trigger me. And so it was kind of cool because we kind of saw each other for the very first time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it is. Where can people find you online?
Yeah. So we got a social media presence. It's small. It's not like you crazy boys with the old TikTok and everything, but we're at Mental Joe, at Mental Joe Apparel. Our website is super easy. It's www.mentaljoe.com is the old website. Facebook, same thing, at Mental Joe Apparel. I'm on LinkedIn too, if you want to just get a hold of me on LinkedIn. But we're trying to branch that up. We got somebody that's trying to help us with some social media stuff. So hopefully you'll see an uptick in some of that stuff soon. But it's just getting all this shit started, as you know, guys. It's just trying to line all it up, knock it down at the same time.
And a lot of your proceeds go to research, psychedelic research. Is that correct? From mental jail?
So that's the goal, and we're still in red, right? So the whole goal is, as we grow and become profitable, like, we want to take profit and essentially for a purpose, right? Like, we want to be able to like write quarterly checks to either some of these foundations that are helping out veterans and first responders, and even your average Joes, right? Or if it's, hey, we need to write a check to MAPS to continue their research. Like, that's the whole goal with this. I always say, like, everyone's got, all their cars, and you see you guys see it, all the millionaires and billionaires, they got their big yachts and all that kind of stuff. And I look at it and go, Jesus Christ, man, that yacht was, $550 million. I look at that differently now. I look at that and go, how many people could that have put through a ceremony or some kind of mental health to make them a better human? So I hope I'm not biting off more than I can chew, but I mean, that's the whole goal, man, is if we could write $1 million checks quarterly to these foundations through apparel sales and stuff, like, makes sense to me. Most nonprofits are, they got their hands out, right? Because they don't really provide, an item for sale, I guess you would say. There's not, it's essentially a service is what they're selling. So they're always asking for money. So if we can be some kind of way to create money for those foundations through partnerships and things of that nature, like, that's the whole goal, is to help out where we can.
Yeah. That's awesome. I applaud what you're doing, man. I mean, especially like you said, there's a stigma there. It's not traditional therapy. So because there's a lot of unknown and people don't understand it, it's honestly going to have like shade thrown on it. Right.
100%.
So the more that we can talk about it, the more that we can educate, the more that we can share experiences and what's out there, and that more people are starting to conform, right? Then it becomes reality. Like, I even think of weed, just marijuana, and the legalization process of that. And even up here, is it legal down there? Marijuana?
Yeah, it's recreational here. Yeah, 100%. And I'll admit it, cannabis is a friend of mine. Like,
is it?
I dig cannabis. Yeah.
Yeah. See, up here in Idaho, they will not. They refuse to legalize it. But you start to see, like, as weed used to be what they call it, fucking
devil's lettuce.
The devil's lettuce.
Devil's lettuce.
Right? But now it's become a normalcy, and it's because people understand that there's health benefits to it. There's, recreational benefits to it. But I think that its time will come. Its time will come where this will become a norm, a social norm. It'll become respected within the mental health industry. I think it's already getting there, right?
Yeah, I mean, this conference that I'm going up to, like, I can't imagine how many doctors and therapists are actually going to this thing to learn. And I have friends that, in fact, have a really close girlfriend I've known for years and years that grew up in Billings, Montana together, and she has her own practice. And she straight was like, yeah, like, I've got 5 clients right now that are on ketamine, and it has literally changed their entire life. So that's people awesome. That have always been part of the very traditional box of mental health are looking on the outside, because they know talk therapy is great, right? But at the end of the day, SSRIs, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, all they're doing is they're numbing you out. You're just living numb, really. It's not fixing anything at all. To where, again, you look at these brain map waves that they're showing on people that, from a baseline, and then they introduce some kind of psychedelic or hallucinogen, and their brain is all over the map as far as what they see on the scan. Like, you've essentially got the left brain talking to the right brain, and everything's crossing over one another. So it's like the brain activity is there. So you're building new neurotransmitters and pathways to go talk to a different side of the brain that hasn't talked to each other in God knows how many years. And it's wild, man. It's cool to be part of this ride, but it's also frustrating because there's still quite a bit of egos. There's still quite a bit of people in here that are, using these medicines and getting into this space for all the wrong reasons. So, but again, you're going to have that in anything you do. So you just got to manage and drive accordingly to miss those pitfalls.
Yeah. Well, on that note, shall we end it?
So you got?
Yeah.
No song.
No song for you.
Anything you got for us, Chad?
No, man, it was good to connect. I know
Yeah.
eventually I want to get my butt up there, and I want to introduce you to a couple of guys that I think would be good for your guys' podcast and stuff too. As we talked before,
Yeah.
Mike, we're going to actually launch his T-shirt at the Psychedelic Conference, and he's actually going to be at our booth up there. Mike Gabler is Mr. Season 43 Survivor winner, so he's actually going to man our booth with us up at there, and he's actually just up the road from you guys. So I'd love to introduce you guys
that'd
to
be
him
great.
and
That'd be great.
have him jump
definitely.
on with you.
Chad and me have been discussing him coming up, making the trip up here because we wanted to have him on the podcast. We want to have him back on. We want to have him on live because I think this is a great topic, and the more we can talk about it and educate, I think the better. But with that being said, I didn't want to let it wait, right? So it's like, fuck,
no, I
we
appreciate
gotta have
that.
you on. And
it needs to be
so. We did it over Zoom this time, but next time we'll be in person. And I appreciate you taking the time to come on and speak to us because, dude, interestingly enough, like I said, this topic has been brought up multiple times, and we get comments about this specifically on our YouTube. And we don't have a huge following. We only have 60 people following us, but hey, they're engaged, and I love it. And like you said, even if we can talk to 60 people, if it makes a difference in one person's life, then, hey, I'm all for it, you know?
Dude, before we leave, I'll give you just to tell you, I know like the mission and just like the way we message things is really hitting home. As I was in Santa Barbara last week, speaking at a club called District 216. It's kind of a psychedelic social club. And what they do is they bring people in to kind of talk about the different science and the different backgrounds and different ecosystem that's going on within that. And I had a gentleman after my talk come up to me and literally said, he goes, the reason I am here is because I saw the ad and you looked like a normal dude that I could relate to. And because of that, I am here and I heard your story. And he literally just emailed me today and told me that he's starting his ketamine therapy sessions next week.
Oh yeah.
Changing lives. Literally.
Yeah. I mean, it's so what we're doing is resonating with people. It's resonating with your average Joe. So it's like, that's what's cool to me. That's a win-win for me right there.
Yeah.
That's all I need to hear.
And, you know, and I don't want to drag this on. Sorry,
No,
Nick,
it's all good.
For me, like, dude, I still rely on alcohol. And so even having this discussion, because me and you have talked about it multiple times.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to learn more. But now I'm more apt to try and go find a ketamine therapy because you're absolutely right. Me being in the military and having PTSD, suffering from anxiety, and they're quick to throw anti-anxiety, depression medication at you. And none of it made me feel good. It made me feel lethargic. It made me feel like I wasn't myself. And so I've always relied to self-medication through fucking alcohol or whatever the case may be. But, I'm ready to make a change, man. So
we got to find you a ketamine.
That's right. We got to find because, and I'm sure it's not just me, but there's other people out there that are watching this. Or there's other people out there that are dealing with the same thing. Like, you know, that's why alcoholism is a thing because it's your way to self-medicate and try and deal with your shit. Right.
Yep. And like I've told you before, man, any of that assistance I can help with, like I said, I'm no expert. I'm a novice, you know, I'm barely in this myself, but like any of that stuff I can help with, to try to guide you or give you some, you know, tips on how to find that ketamine clinic or whatever. We can always talk offline on that kind of stuff. But man, I'm telling you, it's life change, dude. And I know how creative a guy you are. Like that would probably just send you through the roof, dude, as far as like being more creative with, you know, UXO and just you as an individual.
More creativity, Nick.
Yeah.
More creativity.
Figure out your shit, John.
All right. Hey, man, we appreciate it. Thanks for having, I can't even talk. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. We'll have you back on, baby.
Yeah, definitely.
But
sounds good, boys.
If you like this, what you guys get from these conversations, you got something from this episode, please like, subscribe, follow for more great content. We appreciate you guys.
Yes. Much love.